Democrats are hurrying to shove through more bills to destroy small business. Just like Obamacare, Nancy Pelosi, we need to pass the bill before we find out what's in the bill. The fact that any politician can get away with that is mind-blowing. How they're not recalled from office immediately is mind-blowing. The antithesis of America, the antithesis of a tax-free country is what we were. Started on a tax revolt, 1773, the Boston Tea Party. And now we have people rushing before the August session to jam through bills, to rush through bills like Obamacare was enacted, and many others, just so we can pass a green agenda and all these boondoggles, the Inflation Reduction Act, but yet we're going to increase massive spending, insane new spending, just to decrease inflation and spending. I mean, whoever believes this is, again, I've got some oceanfront property in Nebraska to sell you. This is truly the final solution, and this is the end game. This is the end goal. We are living through it. The shoe to drop will be the CBDC, the central bank digital currencies. When that is out, when that is ready, then boom, they will let the bottom drop out. They'll rug pull all of us. And then they'll say, hey, wait, but you can come into our our Fed coin, and we'll give you $10,000 extra dollars, or we'll buy your house for 1.5 times its value. But now we're going to spy on everything you do in your life, and we'll just block your currency if you don't do anything we like you doing. So get ready, buckle up. Here we are. And this is the spending bill they're trying to rush through with Manchin right now. One of the big things, again, and many other things, is inflation reduction by increasing inflation. So, yeah, figure that one out. Good old politicians. The IRS is going to hound and audit the lifeblood of the economy through $80 billion in new spending, increasing bureaucracy, red tape, regulations, audits, etc. So we're going to keep small businesses from providing the very goods and services we need while printing more currency in the background. So let's get this straight here. Less goods and less productivity, more cost now will be passed to the consumer. The effect, well, it's rising prices. You guessed it. While more currency, again in the background, stimulus flooding into the economy, the effect leading to more currency, chasing fewer goods and services, like we just said a minute ago. If there's not as many people, they're too busy now talking to the IRS, being audited, because so many of these small business owners, the 29, 30 million of them in the country, or I believe it's like 20 or 30 million small businesses. I mean, the vast majority of them are making in revenue. They're not taking home $1 million, but vast majority of them are well under the million to 10 million in revenue. 95% of businesses. And that is the lifeblood of the economy, the decentralized economy we have. And most of them are taking home 30 grand a year, 50 grand a year, 100 grand a year. They're not taking home any more than most employees are taking home. Yet they're the ones having to be hounded, trying to make bills at the end of the month, trying to make payroll, making sure all their employees get paid, making sure each person has their paycheck. And then they have to now go take time out of their day, instead of producing more for a better good and service out there and for a better cost, a cheaper cost. Now they have to spend the time away from the business, growing the business, providing better service, goods, and better price for people, talking to the IRS. And now dealing with audits, spending money on audits, spending money on attorneys, CPAs, and spending money not producing anything for the economy. So now they are going to, again, we're printing currency out of nowhere to go fund the IRS, more agents, to bog down the economy, producing less. And again, the end of the day is to exterminate the middle class, exterminate small business, because then, as we'll see here in a minute, the tenets of communism and Marxism are to own all of creation, all business, and centralize all of it, and get rid of the middle class. They want two classes. They want the elites, the 1% themselves, and they want the poor. That's it. This is not me saying this. This is them in their own words. You're going to see some of it here in a minute. For 150 years, this has been the plan. And again, business owners are going to now be more tied up with red tape, like we said, audits, taxes. Where do we think slowing the economy down will help the economy exactly? Effect is rising prices. Inflation and rising prices destroy the middle class and poor. They generally don't own the assets. The elites know that. They are Ivy League educated. And again, we can get into these debates about how educated they really are. But again, they're smart people. They're educated. They know. They know exactly what they're doing, what that affects, and who that affects. So you'd have to ask, as a sane human being, a half intelligent human being, you have to sit back and say, why would they do that then? Why are they doing that? If they know, if they're so smart and they know it's going to slow down the economy, they're not going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you it's going to increase inflation. They're not going to tell you it's going to slow down the economy. They're not going to tell you it's going to destroy small businesses and centralize power. So why are they doing it? That's the question that needs to be asked. And, I have my own answers, but we all have to come up with our own. Here's the New York Times. IRS says new funding won't mean more audits for middle income Americans. Oh, thanks. Well, now we know exactly what it will do. And again, just to let everyone know, in my 20 years of studying politics and in really closely following politics and history and studying monetary history, this is what always happens. They always claim, Marxism, the other empires, Roman Empire. They always say, this is for the wealthy, this is for the rich. But the rich don't pay taxes because they're incentivized to do real estate, to create businesses. So they, by the very tax code, don't pay taxes. That just gets passed down to the consumer. And we need the business owners to create the jobs and create the products, create the goods, and think of those things to employ people to take the risk, to take the gambles, to then go provide us with amazing products, with the Apple iPhone. We need a Steve Jobs. We need Elon Musk to expand our context and go to the moon, go to Mars, do these things. Who else is doing that? I'm not doing that. I don't have the same tax rates as Elon does because I'm not providing the same amount of jobs, the same goods and services. So now what they do is they always pin it on the rich for centuries and centuries, millennia. They pin it on the rich and say, we're going to do this. And then it trickles down and then it always shifts to the poor and middle class. This is how it always happens. This is how every empire is destroyed. And they say it's for this. And then it goes to, because no one ever follows up on this stuff. No one ever looks. Again, our politicians, our representatives we vote for don't even look at the damn bills before they go into effect. Again, Nancy Pelosi on line 3. And they they don't even know it's in these. So again, this is how it always starts. Every single time. Well, it's not going to be for the poor middle class. Well, newsflash, it is. It not only does it directly transfer and just becomes tax increases for the poor and middle class, but indirectly it will be through inflation and through rising prices because those prices, like I said, get passed down to the consumers. The businesses have higher costs now. Now they pass those on, raise their prices, and we're seeing it now. We're living through these things. I talked about these things for years, and inflation wasn't that big of an issue. People didn't notice it as much because it was only 2 to 10% somewhere in there. Now that true inflation, not get rid of the garbage the government's telling you. Now that true inflation is 15, 20, 25% or so, now people are starting to, oh my gosh, what's going on here? Yes, this has been going on for years. They've been stealing your currency. Inflation is a silent tax. And I'm going to say that a billion more times here to the end of the time, and they're stealing to try to pay the debts they're incurring by $80 billion in new spending to the IRS. Why? How about get rid of the IRS? Why do we even have the IRS? Why isn't our tax code one page long? This isn't that hard. It's not complicated, but yet we make it complicated. We make it extremely complicated. Why not a flat tax? That's the fairest thing of all. We want to talk about fairness. Every person's paying 10%. There we go. Yes, that might mean departments go away. We don't need the departments. We were number one in education until 1979. Jimmy Carter started the Department of Education, and now we've fallen off a cliff. We are nowhere near the top of the education scoreboard in the world. It's because we've centralized these things. We have government running everything. Government always destroys everything. There's no incentive for the government to do anything good. They don't produce things. They don't produce goods and services. They don't have any incentive. Who is holding them accountable? No one's holding them accountable. If you're a business owner, if you own a business and you're getting bad reviews or people are word of mouth telling you not to go to your business because you provide a bad service, you will be out of business. But the government continually gets our tax money, or they print their own currency to keep themselves afloat. And then we pay higher prices through inflation to bail them out. This is insane. I feel like I'm going insane. I truly do. But climate, bro. Sorry, I'm just going to digress here. I'm not even going to get into the green economy, the ESG garbage part of the bill, and all this, Green New Deal and all this BS. It's absolute trash. We have written about this before, and I'll continue to write about it in other misses from here until we defeat this. It's a complete sham. Again, I'm sorry to knock people off their stool here, but this is a complete sham to gain power and control by taking freedoms away from people. That's all ESG is. That's all climate change is. It used to be global cooling, then it was global warming in the 90s, and now it's global climate change. And because they keep rebranding it, you have to keep rebranding things when things don't work, and when you're shown to be a liar, when you're shown to be wrong, they keep rebranding these things, and that's literally all it is. We have the Club of Rome. Again, these are not my words. Documented in many places, all over the place, by the people themselves. The World Economic Forum, and their origins were the Club of Rome and the limits to growth. Here in the 60s and 70s, Klaus Schwab, these are the Malthusians, they loved each other, and they said, hey, we need a global problem where we can scare people into giving us their power and their freedom, or their freedoms, which give us power, right? If we give away our liberties and freedoms, It said that, again, one man with a gun can control 100 men without a gun. And throughout society, the Russians, the Chinese, they would do gun grabs. They would give away their guns. They would give away their power. And then immediately, soon after that, the destruction would happen. Every single time. This is so beyond frustrating. Mission is almost complete. We're almost there. And again, I appreciate your patience. I'm just beyond frustrated because this is just, we've never had more knowledge in the world, more access to information in a society. We've never been less knowledgeable. We've never been more incompetent than we are now, but we have the most exposure to information possible. It really is upsetting, quite honestly. But back to here now. Squeezing and bloodletting millions of business owners while the government's print trillions isn't exactly helping. So you're going to audit people, slow down small businesses everywhere, and make their lives living hells just to what? Squeeze a couple $1 million out of them extra while the government prints trillions, even billion, even to squeeze a couple billion, 10 billion out of these big corporations. But they're printing trillions of dollars. Our deficit is a trillion to $2 trillion a year. It's 1,000 times that. So you're going to what? Tax them every single year? $1 billion, all the small businesses and the bigger businesses, $1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion, 500 billion. And then what? You're going to tax them again the next year? The wealth is gone. This is why this game doesn't work. When you actually break this down and truly understand the lens they're coming from, which all it is power and control, that's all they want, then you see that there's no reason to be doing any of this other than just getting out of the way. Yet they can continually insert themselves, print more currency, more rules, more taxes, more regulations to destroy everything. Because that's the goal. No one wants to talk about this. The goal is to take this out. And again, here we drop my microphone. I'm so ticked off right now. It doesn't take a rocket science to see that math doesn't add up. We're going to see it here in a second. These are their goals. If we watch and read what they've actually talked about, we see, again, Thomas Sowell always says one of the worst mistakes that honorable people do is they don't, and I'm paraphrasing, one of the worst mistakes of honorable people is they underestimate how many dishonorable people are in the world and they trust them too much. That couldn't be more accurate today. Again, mind you, the Fed already has admitted, we've shared this in other blogs, we've shared this, that they admit 50, 60 years ago, they came out, the Fed chairs said, we don't need taxes. We can print our own currency. We don't even need to tax you, but we do anyway, just to control society and just to, try to make things fair and screw with people, in essence, long story short. How people aren't revolting in the street by morning, it's just unbelievable. Again, it leads to a common sense question earlier. Why do this then? Why are they doing it? It only leads you to one possible outcome, because they want to virtue signal, make people feel good, make themselves feel good at cocktail parties, but they want power. Ultimately, they want to destroy the middle class. Again, Karl Marx's own words, and they ultimately want to get rid of small businesses, which is the middle class, and centralize everything into a few massive conglomerates that control the world. Because it is a lot easier to control than trying to tell hundreds of thousands and millions of decentralized business owners what to do. So again, this was, 20 years ago, I remember arguing with people about this all the time. And, it seemed crazier at the time, even though the writings haven't changed. The writings have been around for decades and hundreds plus years. But the government was doing things at a slower rate. So it didn't seem as crazy. People are like, well, you know what, Brandon, like, okay, life seems pretty good. Like it's, it is what it is. Like, whatever. Now, I mean, boy, the last 2 years, if people's eyes aren't opened, I honestly don't know. I mean, the censorship everywhere, we're going to take your guns. We're going to take, you can't say this, you can't say that. We're redefining speech everywhere. We don't know what to call anyone. We don't know anyone anywhere what's going on, right? So the abolishment of all private property. Remember, Marxism is the abolishment of all private property. Commerce is run by the state and all aided by a central bank. 1, 2, and 3. And here it is in the Communist Manifesto itself. These are my copies talking about the manifesto and all the bullet points here themselves. This is exactly what it is. The goal is destroying capitalism and freedom around the world. Karl Marx is an angry man who blamed everyone else for his problems. And here it is, in his own words. Heavy progressive graduated income tax, abolition of private property, right there in of itself, confiscation of all property, centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of a national bank, a central bank, centralizing the means of communication and transport, and on and on and on. This is here. This is all what it is. So we're getting damn close to that. Bury your heads in the sands for another 5 to 10 years. Pull it up, and that's exactly what we'll have. 2 classes of people. Al Gore riding around on his private jet with the 1%, meeting at Davos with Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, and the other 99% of us living in abject poverty around the world at the mercy of our benevolent overlords. The choice has never been more clear. For crying out loud, the elites, the media, academia, and the ghouls all over the global organizations, the WEF, the IMF, the BIS, ECB, BOJ, the UN, and on and on and on, are literally writing and publishing these very words and putting out videos telling us we'll own nothing and be happy. And then we have sharing clips of these all over. Articles about how hungry people work harder. So again, clips here about the UN saying that. And again, this is, John saying this has got to be satire. Well, let me help you. This is called the Overton window. They mention it to a bunch of people, or they mention it to everyone. Then they spring it on you, and eventually, they mention it to people a bunch of times. Then they spring it on you eventually, and it doesn't sound that bad because you've heard it at least 7 times in marketing speak. So your brain accepts it as more normal. That's how these things always roll out. How we need to get used to eating bugs from the World Economic Forum here just in the last number of months, last year. You cannot make this stuff up. And if it wasn't enough from the New York Times, cannibalism is okay. These people are literally off their rocker. Notice how all these alphabet soup of global agencies, or notice how all these are alphabet soup of global agencies. I say that's fine. Let them do all those things first and try it out. And once they've eaten all the bugs and gone hungry themselves, then we'll come and try it. All empires eventually come to an end. We are at the end of our road. America and the Western way of life is the greatest thing to ever happen to humanity. It's a shining city on a hill and a place that people can come to, that people still come to in bathtubs across the ocean, doing anything they can to seek a better life. Turning everything around and becoming exactly what we tried to get away from is probably not the right answer. I'm just going to take a wild guess. The final solution. Alas, here we are. The Democrats taken over by progressive Marxists decades and decades ago, and some in the Republican Party as well. Many not even knowing the existence of why they believe what they believe. They've just been taught that through parenting, through schools, media, etc., shoving bills through the legislature that will make everyone equally poor and lower the standard of living. Elections have consequences, and we get who we vote for. However, you can continue removing yourself from the system by making yourself independent and resilient. Voting out Marxists and anyone trying to take away liberties and freedoms, stock food storage and water storage, store up on gas and energy, store Bitcoin on your cold storage wallet, buy a little physical gold and silver, be out of the system completely, acquire some security, lights, candles, flashlights, batteries, get involved in one local PTA or city hall meeting each year. If every adult does this once a year, wow, what a difference that can make. Speak out against people or take a stand when they say ignorant things in your presence. It's time. Evil only exists when good people stand by silently in the face of evil. Family, friends, coworkers, etc. Remember, you have truth on your side. And as Thomas Paine once noted, during our founding, these are the times that try men's souls. Where will your children say you stood when our freedoms hung in the balance? Again, stay strong. Next week we'll have our investment portfolio update and talking about El Salvador and the only country in the world on the Bitcoin standard and where they stand, and the media lying about them, of course, what's new. And appreciate your time and your energy. It's the most important asset we have. And if you like this, please share it. If you disliked it, that as well. But like and subscribe. And we will see you on the next one.